nature can reveal some amazing things if we stop, or at least slow down and take a look at what's happening in the world around us. So it's a nice little forest path, great morning for a walk. And I couldn't help but notice that someone spent a lot of time on the side of this trail. So what I've got over here on the side of this healthy sized ancient eastern white pine is at the base. I have a whole collection of discarded pine cone shells. And what that tells me is somebody's taken apart a pine cone. And in this forest, there's one member of our rodent community that does that and does it very well, right? That's the red squirrel. So the red squirrel is perfectly adapted to life in this environment. You know, they don't hibernate. They're quite active. In fact, I lose a lot of bird seed to the red squirrel that I support, red squirrels that I support around my home. But otherwise, they are they're pretty faithful to the eastern white pine and most coniferous forests. They're just very helpful. They're helpful because of not only what they eat, but how they eat it. So they're perfectly adapted to go up the tree and find the 2-year-old or even 3-year-old pine cones and the seeds, right? The pine seeds are underneath the protective husk. So they'll wait for, for the right maturity of a cone to open up, and they start from the top and they work their way down. And what they do is it's literally like a cob of corn. They'll just start ripping up the husk and the seeds are falling all around. And they're making a little pile. Now, they won't exactly get all the seeds, which is what makes them so helpful, because they now leave those seeds available to other rodents, right? The moles and the voles and the mice. But they mostly get picked up by birds, right? The chickadees and the blue jays, the nuthatches, and all the little wood sparrows that are following them around. And so they do their part. And the way I like to explain it, I like to imagine it as a cartoon in my own head. The red squirrel is quite simplistic. It has but two thoughts. You know, what can I eat and how can I not be eaten? So while it's thinking about one, it doesn't think about the other, which has allowed it to be perfectly adapted and camouflaged to its environment, so that while it's got the pine cone, it's busy working, its body and its camouflage takes over. So it's got that rusty color that matches, all the pine needles that are making up the forest floor of a eastern white pine forest. And so its fur is the exact texture, all right, of, these pine needles. So when I pick up these pine needles, right, it's the exact texture and shape, color of the red squirrel's own fur. And believe it or not, when you pick up that pine cone, it's almost got the same color shape as the red squirrel's own tail. So when it's thinking about food, it's focused, it's eating, it's not thinking about predators. So that's where its body takes over and does that job for it. So if there's a hawk or an owl or a fox or something passing by, as long as that squirrel stays still, right? Stays still, hunched over, it's got its tail up over its back. When it is busy munching down, the camouflage to a predator makes it look like just another pine cone and another bunch of fur. Now, what gives it away is its movement, obviously, and maybe the sheen or the gleam of its black rodent eye, catching the sun. But otherwise, perfectly adapted. Unlike the gray squirrels we see in the city, right? And that's the way I like to refer to them as. We've got some red squirrels that spend predominantly most of their ranges here in the forests, although I have seen them in developed areas and urban areas. In the gray squirrel, I have seen them out in the forest, but I mean, it's rare. They tend to be a little bit more of a hardwood animal. That's their habitat. They would prefer to thrive in hardwood forest, and they're more successful living in the cities, in parks. So I know that there's red squirrels out here. I haven't seen any, but I know what to look for. Super hard to track. They're not going to leave much of an impression on the forest floor, but they're leaving sign of their browsing. And in the zoological world, when you see a pile of litter like this left behind by a red squirrel, it's called a midden. All right, that's what the other animals in the forest are looking for. Signs that red squirrels have been around by their messy pile. Midden, M-I-D-D-E-N, not like a pair of mittens, but a midden. So walking through the forest, I'm aware that red squirrels are around because I'm noticing gathered piles of cones, and I'm also noticing piles of husks from those cones and maybe even the little cob left behind. That's a squirrel midden, a sign that they've been super helpful to the rest of our forest friends, and they're helping to contribute and spread those seeds, giving us more trees. So things I notice out in nature. You can do the same if you go outside. All right, thanks for watching. Bye-bye.